A few days ago, there was a story in Forbes that the Russians had launched another Oreshnik missile. Forbes has updated that article to show that it's a false story because the Kyiv Independent denied those reports vehemently. Now, for those of you who don't remember what the Oreshnik missile is, it is a breakthrough technology, one that is incredibly dangerous, incredibly frightening. Its potential is literally groundbreaking in more ways than one. But the story turned out to be false. But again, I've been keeping an eye on this, so it kind of led me down a little bit of a road, and it showed me this article that I found very interesting. Two key Russian weapons engineering institutes, Moscow Institute for Thermal Technology and Savetsky, were named by Ukrainian intelligence as developers of Oreshnik. According to the Financial Times, they posted job listings in 2024 that specified expertise in operating German and Japanese metalworking systems. The list cited Fanuc, Japan, Siemens, and Heidenheim, both Germany, control systems for high-precision computer numerical control machines essential for missile production. Despite sanctions slowing the flow of such equipment, FT analysts found that at least $3 million worth of Heidenheim components were shipped to Russia in 2024, with some buyers closely tied to military production. Defense experts from the University of Oslo suggested that the Oreshnik was not a wholly new developed, but rather modification of a RS-26 missile. So Western companies are still able to get around some of the sanctions, providing technology to create what is literally a groundbreaking missile that we do not have the technology to match. This is a very, very alarming development. For those of you who've forgotten what Oreshnik is, I want to bring up a video here from Millennium 7 who explains why this is such a breakthrough technology and the potentials of it. This is groundbreaking.
In a recent video inspired by the events in the Middle East and the growing tension in the Western Pacific, we discussed how many ballistic missiles may be necessary to disable a large airbase. We discussed a scenario in which Misawa, a US Air Force base in Japan, comes under attack from the Chinese. It was an interesting video, and I suggest you to have a look. However, the result of that analysis was that you may need well over 100 missiles to disable a large airbase like Misawa, for example. And you need that many even if the base is not protected by anti-ballistic systems. Large air bases are hard and big targets with simply a lot of things to hit. And if the base is defended, you may need twice as many missiles because the first wave will be needed to deplete the defending battery.
The first wave will definitely be needed to deplete the battery. This is video of Iranian missiles striking that airbase that he just showed a map of. This is obviously muted because they put music on it. You can see how many different individual missiles are used. And he cites this. Again, this is the very base that he just showed in his video, the map of the pinpoints of all those strikes. Each one of those was an individual missile. Those weren't MIRV submunitions like what we're going to be dealing with. And this is the same base, but on the receiving end. Again, muted. A whole stream of missiles coming in. And if you look at the speed of those missiles, compared to what we're going to be seeing, they are relatively slow. And that's the receiving end. Again, this is what it would be like. And I'm going to hit play here, but I want you to pay attention to where the pinpoints are in the videos that you just saw.
Twice as many missiles because the first wave will be needed to deplete the defending battery and the second wave will do the job. So, in the light of this consideration, do you realize what the Russians have just done? The Russians have just reduced these few hundreds of missiles to 4 or 5. Your only hope in this case is to hit the missile before it releases the submunition, which is something that the SM-3 might be capable of doing.
The SM-3 is capable of that. For sure, the SM-6 is capable of that. We're going to get into that a little bit here in just a few seconds.
But surely is beyond the THAAD capability. Now, do you realize that a couple of hundred of these Oreshnik could ground all the NATO air forces in Europe? And if the bases were defended, do you realize that you need at least a THAAD battery for every air base? How much is
A THAAD battery for every airbase, or an Aegis ashore for every single airbase. You're going to need more than a THAAD battery. You're going to literally need an entire Aegis ashore facility for almost everything if that's how you plan to cover it. And the production rate of THAAD and SM-6, SM-6 we know for a fact on this channel, if you go back, Navy procurement is woeful when it comes to SM-6 production. We used 60 SM-6 missiles during our battle with the Houthis over a 15-month period. We produce 150 SM-6 missiles every single year. So over that 15-month period, we used a little under half of our entire production. Our production of theater high-altitude air defense and SM-6 is woefully lacking to be able to take on the kind of attack you just saw on multiple air bases with multiple missiles, like what he's describing in this theoretical attack on an American air base in Japan. That has now been reduced greatly. The speed of those missiles impactors has been increased exponentially, and we just can't keep up right now.
It's going to cost, and more importantly, how long is going to take to build all these launchers, interceptors, radars, and so on? And if this scenario happens, do you realize that the NATO forces, without the possibility of establishing air superiority and air dominance, lose most, if not all, of their edge? Do you realize that the same type of weapon quite soon could be in Chinese hands, or could be given to the North Koreans, or to the Iranians, and so on? What the Russians just did is a textbook asymmetric reply, which is what their doctrine actually predicates that they should do. And with the deployment of a single system like this, they have just changed the game. And if this wasn't scary enough, there is another element you should be scared of. This time, the Russians notified the Americans of the launch, because normally an intermediate-range ballistic missile doesn't have conventional warheads. And you have no way of telling if a missile being launched is either nuclear or conventional. So every time one of these weapons is launched, there is the possibility that by mistake, a nuclear retaliation is going to happen. The Americans are planning to deploy hypersonic weapons in Germany from 2026, potentially armed with nuclear warheads as well. The flight time of these systems is a few minutes. You don't have time to sit down and assess the situation. These are extremely dangerous. A commander with slightly shaky hands could initiate unwittingly a nuclear holocaust. Now, to be fair, Putin said that if they're going to use these weapons, again, they will notify in advance to let eventually civilians evacuate the area. If they do so, it's an extra level of safety, but nobody's forcing them to do so. They may choose to launch a surprise attack.
Which I think is a game changer. I think right there you have what amounts to a forced handshake agreement. Countries will use hypersonic missiles and ballistic missiles of this nature against each other from now and into the future, but they will warn each other that they're doing it until the first one who doesn't warn somebody, that's the one that everyone's going to assume is a nuke. I think that is literally a strategic shift that I don't know that anyone has really truly understood. That we have had a strategic shift that hypersonic and ballistic missiles from thousands of kilometers away, intercontinental, is now literally a possibility. And I did a video previously on this called The Intercontinental Sniper. It's a fictional story about an intercontinental drone pilot in the United States killing a Terry overseas. Fascinating story. I do think that although fiction is shows the future, it really shows the future that intercontinental warfare is going to become a thing where it's almost a 9-to-5 job for somebody to go check in, punch a button, launch a missile, activate a drone, do anything like that, where it's a 9-to-5 job and it's just punch and go. That said, I think that there is almost a handshake agreement at this point where hypersonic and ballistic missiles will be used, and the first one who doesn't give a warning, that'll be assumed to be the nuke. And that one is trouble.
And considering that again Putin explicitly said that the use of this weapon is a retaliation for the recent permission that was given to Ukraine to use long-range weapons inside Russia, I wouldn't be surprised if the Russians used the Oreshnik to go after some target outside Ukraine. Think, for example, of Akrotiri in Cyprus. It is a British base, and the British have given the Ukrainian permission to use the Storm Shadow on Russian territory. And from the news that we have, they are also working better than the American ATACMS. Another possible target is Feteshti, the airbase in Romania, where the Ukrainian F-16 pilots are being trained. Another potential targets are the US Army depot in Poland. There are several. Do you understand why I'm scared now?
As you can see, these are the videos of when the strike happened. It looks like it's the thunder from Thor. It's amazing to watch. And this is the most relevant angle. These are clearly more designed to penetrate the ground. I want to cite, look around on the ground here where you see all the headlights and other lights. As these impact the ground, it's clear that they are shaking the earth because every single car alarm goes off. You notice every single light is now flashing that can flash. Every car alarm is going off. Because those are designed to go underground. So it's speculated that that was the Ukrainian rocket and missile production facility. If that's the case, then those penetrators, they would do the job. And it's a scary thing. It's a scary technology. You can see why he was scared. That said, the news that it was a failed launch, even Forbes has now stated that that's not true. Even they've come out and said it. Probably because the West really, really, really wants them to fire off a couple of Oreshniks because they want to get their hands on that technology. That's my guess, is that the West covets this technology. and wants to find out everything it can about it. I would. It's groundbreaking. You're turning one missile into a weapon that has the ability to strike 36 targets with the equivalent of a Mark 84 bomb. That technology is useful. As long as you warn people it's coming, because if you don't, you may start World War III. But I just wanted to update about this Oreshnik. I've been fascinated by this since it's launched. I've seen a strategic change here. Like I said, I think there's literally a handshake agreement now where you're going to use hypersonics or ballistic missiles, but you better warn us. That goes for both sides. If you don't, it's going to be assumed to be a nuke getting a response. But that's all I got for this. I really do thank you for listening and swinging by. If you liked what you heard, I hope you hit the subscribe and like button. And I really appreciate you, and I hope that you'll join me again. Thank you.